Everybody, and welcome back to another Daily Drop here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and if you happen to be checking us out on YouTube, that's our channel, Tar Heel Illustrated. If you don't know about our website, head on over there, guys, TarHeelIllustrated.com. We're just $8.33 a month for a one-year subscription. That's less than a number at a drive-through. I know, because I drove to Atlanta last weekend to cover football. Had to stop a few times, and man, I don't get the numbered things because I don't do the fries, but it's still about the same amount, or it's actually less than most numbered meals. So it's just a drop in the bucket, man. The price of everything else is skyrocketing. This is the same price we were when I took over the site August 1st, 2014. So it keeps everything going. It keeps these podcasts going, and then some. So the topic today in this drop is basketball. The Tar Heels open the season in just several days, so we're hitting basketball hard. Kind of helps that football is having a Campbell week. So this drop and then tomorrow's drop on Friday will also be about Carolina basketball. And the topic is Hubert Davis. Year 3 is about to formally launch. Is 3 years enough time to judge Hubert Davis as a head coach? I asked the question because I'm getting that from a lot of people. And in a way, it's sort of something that was born out of when he got the job. Because I've always thought that a coach, especially a new head coach, needs 3 years minimum to kind of determine what kind of coach he is. Because the dynamics of a season aren't enough, of a single season aren't enough to really know if they're a good coach. You could get an idea that they can do some things and then maybe wonder about certain things. A second season brings a new set of challenges, and a third brings a new one. So there's 3 separate seasons, 3 separate series of challenges and changes in personnel. So you then, after a third year, start to get a real good idea of what kind of coach somebody is. So if the Tar Heels have played 9 months of in-season basketball, which is about what they've had under Hubert, 8 of them have been one, I would say, maybe it's fair to say 5 weeks, was outstanding, was awesome. Perhaps that was a glimpse into the future with Hubert, and it just takes time to get there. Maybe it was just a flare-up, and that was that. And it really is what those 8 other months are. Or maybe that was all part of his process in finding things out, having to figure out as he went along how to handle a bench. Where's the line he must have as a head coach on trusting a kid to put him in the game or not put him in the game? And I say that because a lot of people still ask, well, will he play his bench? Because they believe that Hubert likes the Iron Five, doesn't want to play his bench. Let me just remind everybody, his first year, he had a bench. If Dawson Garcia doesn't leave in January, he's part of a 6-man rotation. Puff Johnson, let's remember, was in the rotation. So it actually was a 6-man rotation in the NCAA tournament. Puff played 18 minutes in the national championship game, scored 11 points, and had 6 rebounds. So it wasn't really an Iron Five. Then you add Anthony Harris, who was in the rotation until he was ineligible. That's 8. So if Garcia stays, Harris is eligible, Hubert and the Tar Heels roll into March with an 8-man rotation. That's not an Iron Five. Last year, it turned out to be more of an Iron Five type of unit than anybody expected. You might ask, did he just choose not to play the bench, or was the bench not good enough to play? I'm not a big fan of being overly critical of college kids, but I will tell you this. I do know, and speaking with people around the program and just watching how things unfolded, that the bench just wasn't good enough. Do I think guys like Tyler Nickel and Dontrez Styles maybe could have played more early on just to see what they were about? Maybe Jalen Washington, when he got thrust in the lineup at UVA, played well. He had a pretty nice game in 20 minutes at Louisville a few days later. Maybe he earned the opportunity to play 10 minutes a game instead of 3 minutes a game. Yeah, I think so. But Hubert has a standard as a head coach. And that standard needs to be understood and respected. And if Tyler Nickel and DeMarco Dunn and Dontrez Styles and Justin McCoy and those guys didn't measure up to that standard consistently enough, they weren't going to get in the game. And goodness knows there were opportunities, because that was a team that played in sand too often. The Pete Nance situation just didn't mesh. Caleb was off most of the season. They needed sparks off the bench that could be trusted on a consistent basis. And Puff was banged up, and Puff didn't play that well last year. Puff was better the last couple of months of the season before than he was at any time last year. So we move ahead to this year. He's got guys that should give him a bench. So there shouldn't be any reason to not play the bench. If he doesn't play the bench, right now, the assumed starting five, which has been the case so far and was in the scrimmage at Florida Atlantic, R.J. Davis, Paxton Wojcik, Cormac Ryan, Harrison Ingram, and Armando Bacot. Now, you can't have an iron five with that group, because that means you're not playing with Jalen Withers, means you're not playing Elliot Cadeau, means you're not playing Jalen Washington, you're not playing James Okonkwo, you're not playing Seth Trimble, you're not playing Zayden High. They have 11 guys on scholarship. I don't think that's going to be the case. And that's why the third year is an important year to judge Hubert, because this is a very unique roster, very different roster than what he's had. The challenges with this roster are different than the first two. We will see how he handles a bench as we move through the season. We will see if he's a guy that just marries himself to a starting lineup, or if he's a coach that tinkers with it sometimes, like a lot of coaches have. Roy Williams has done that in the past. Dean used to do it some. Tony Bennett has done that at Virginia. Coach K used to always do that, given certain kinds of rosters. This is a roster that maybe that happens. Or maybe Paxton Wojcik starts now, and at some point, a month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks in the season, Elliot Cadeau slides into the starting lineup. Wojcik then comes off the bench. That could happen. It happened with Kendall Marshall when he jumped over Larry Drew. Something that was obvious was going to happen or should happen for a while, and then eventually did, and that team took off. That was Roy. This is Hubert. It'll be interesting to see how Hubert handles Cadeau. Is he the kind of player that is better off starting than coming off the bench because of the way he plays and what he provides you? Do you want R.J. Davis popping off screens and getting catch and shoot threes instead of creating his own three a lot? The more you take him off the ball, do you make him a better shooter because the kind of threes he's going to get? What is his shot distribution going to be like as a point guard? These are all things Hubert has to figure out as the season goes on. And that's one of the beautiful things about early season college basketball is there's so much intel gained. I used to talk to people like other media that covered other teams. They'd ask about Roy early in the year and how he would play certain guys 10 or 12 minutes in a game that you think, wow, if this was March, that guy might not even play or get 2 minutes. Because Roy sort of looked at November and December as a giant series of lab experiments. Let's mix all these potions together. Let's get them under the glass and really examine and see what works well together. And then he starts whittling away at it in January. And by February, boom, he had what he wanted, had his rotation, knew what he wanted. Everybody had experience. Everybody knew what worked. Everybody knew what didn't work. And that's why his teams always got better. We don't yet have a feel for how Hubert's going to handle a program on an annual basis as far as building a team from now and through March. He's still feeling his way around, but he's had 2 seasons to do it. One that led to a run. One that led to total embarrassment. Not making the winning. Imagine winning 20 games at North Carolina and not making the NCAA tournament. That's pretty embarrassing. Part of that was a product of the league, but more of it was a product of them just not being very good. And they didn't really improve. They had a couple of decent stretches, but they didn't really improve. So I do think it's fair to judge Hubert as a head coach in the third year. I didn't think it was fair in the first year. You could judge aspects of his coaching, but not the whole of his coaching. I thought it was fair his second year to judge aspects of his coaching, but not the whole of his coaching. In the third year, I think we can more judge the whole of his coaching. It's not a referendum on whether he's a good coach or not. Y'all know Dean Smith's history. You didn't want to judge him after year 3. Nobody wanted to do that. So you don't want to fully judge, making a declarative statement, Hubert can or cannot coach based on this year. But I do think we can start to judge him and say, okay, we got 3 years of intel. This is what I think of him as a coach. Because I'm not 100% sure yet. That's why I think there's lots of questions out there. And among the many fascinating things about this basketball team and what it's going to be like covering this team is all of the questions. And I believe this season is going to give us a ton of answers. Some may be positive for you guys. Some may not be very positive for you guys, but we'll get answers. And we'll have a podcast sometime in April after the season's over, and David and I will sit down. All right, what kind of coach is Hubert? And we're going to have a much better chance at answering that question in 5 or 6 months from now than we can right now. And that's why I cannot wait for this season to get rolling. I love intel. I love more evidence that gives us intel, and it helps us not come to full conclusions, but get a good idea about where things stand. So yes, I do believe through the third year is enough. Do you agree? Do you think a third year is enough? Or do you think you already know if Hubert's a good coach or not a good coach yet? Have you made your mind up on Hubert? Or are you really excited about year 3 with a different roster, a roster that he created for the most part? It's his. Those are his dudes. Are you real excited to see what's going to happen with this group and how Hubert coaches them? Go ahead and click like if you are on board with all that stuff. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Make sure you share this video with all your Carolina friends. Let them know we're here. If you have Tar Heel friends that do not know we're here, let them know we're here. And go ahead and hit the notification bell so you get updates every time we upload a video. I'm AJ, and I'll see you tomorrow.